name is Rachel McDonough, and this is my friend. Hi, I'm Savannah. And we're here at the beautiful Madison Square Garden for the big fight, and you are watching True School Sports.
My flow, my show brought me to go. That brought me all my fancy things. My crib, my cars, my clothes, my jewels. Look, homie, I done came up and I ain't changing. You should love it way more than you hate it. Oh, you mad? I thought that you'd be happy I made it.
Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, the Cash Cow, the YTBC, and I came here to talk some boxing. Now, this is the official preview for Manny Pacquiao versus Keith One-Time Thurman from the MGM Grand Garden Arena, July the 20th in Las Vegas, Nevada. So fight night is just around the corner, and to kind of get the people excited and to just start talking about the next big fight in boxing, I wanted to just do a little breakdown video of Keith One-Time Thurman versus Manny Pacquiao, or better yet, Manny Pacquiao versus Keith One-Time Thurman, because that's what it is. Manny Pacquiao is the ace side against any and all welterweights, but Manny Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman is a very interesting fight. Very interesting fight. Probably one of the most interesting matchups that could be made in the welterweight division. So for this one time and one time only, we will say it here on True School Sports. Thank you, Al Heyman, for making the matchup, because it's definitely an interesting one. So we'll start off with just the measurables of both fighters, you know, just how they measure up, who has the advantages where. So we'll start with reach. Manny Pacquiao has a 67-inch reach, and Keith Thurman has a 69-inch reach as per Box Rack, okay? So we're talking about Keith Thurman having a 2-inch reach advantage over Manny Pacquiao, which most fighters do at this weight. You know, I don't know too many fighters at welterweight who don't have longer arms than Manny Pacquiao, so that's really irrelevant. It's not about the reach, it's how you use the reach, and you need to have the boxing smarts, the composure to deal with the lateral movement of Manny Pacquiao. So, not a big factor, but it is worth noting that Keith Thurman does have a 2-inch reach advantage here. We go to height. Once again, another one. You know, Manny Pacquiao has pushing 5 feet 5 inches tall. Keith Thurman is 5 feet 7.5 inches tall, so he's hovering around almost damn near 5'8", similar dimensions to Floyd Mayweather in terms of height. So, you know, good stuff there from Keith Thurman. You know, he can't control his height, but most fighters that fight at welterweight are taller than Pacquiao, so it's not really much there. But again, so Keith Thurman comes in with an advantage in reach and height. Now, where this all evens out, really, where this all really evens out is ring experience, number of rounds, and not just number of rounds, but number of rounds in big fights on the big stage against top level opposition. You cannot put a price on that. Those things come at a premium in boxing. So in terms of rounds fought in their careers, Manny Pacquiao has put in 474 rounds in the bank so far in his illustrious boxing career, and in Keith Thurman's very, very respectable career, he has put in 148 rounds. So we're talking about well over 300 rounds more of boxing experience at the world championship level, and just in the professional ranks of boxing in general for Manny Pacquiao. So the discrepancies and the differences that, you know, Thurman has over Pacquiao in height can very easily be evened out by ring experience, which Pacquiao has a massive advantage over in Keith Thurman. So those are the measurables, and just wanted to get those out there so you guys know the facts for yourself.
Good morning, America. Happy 4th of July. It's your boy, the champ. Enjoy the fireworks today. Enjoy your family. Enjoy the barbecue. Do what you do. Be proud to be an American today. It's Independence Day. And don't forget, July 20th, we got real fireworks coming your way. Versus Manny Pacquiao. Stay tuned.
Now, from the Keith Thurman side of things, you know, this is a very interesting fight for him because he's coming into this fight, you know, it's his first, like, real big fight since the Danny Garcia fight in March of 2017. It's his first fight at this level, you know, fighting a guy like Manny Pacquiao. When you fight Manny Pacquiao, it's like a whole nother level of boxing. Not just in terms of in the ring, but also I would say in terms of global appeal, because Manny Pacquiao's got a whole country behind him. So he's never been on the stage before. It's his first time, I believe, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it might be his first time headlining at the MGM Grand Garden Arena, but I might be wrong about that, so don't quote me on that one. But we don't know which Keith Thurman's going to show up into the ring. You know, there's been a lot of people questioning, myself included, questioning his dedication, his heart, his, not his heart, we know he has heart, but his hunger for the sport, because he had a very good run at welterweight. He beat Sean Porter, he beat Danny Garcia, basically went into semi-retirement mode, took a 22-month layoff or whatever it was, and then he followed Steve Lopez, and he won the fight rather easily, but didn't look his best. So there's a lot of questions surrounding Keith Thurman at the current moment. Now, I'll be honest with you, just looking at Keith Thurman and really studying what he's been doing for this training camp, and I know you can't put too much stock into what fighters are doing in training camp, but one thing I do look at when it comes to fighters is if they've been at the top level for a good amount of time, which Keith Thurman has, he's been at that top level of boxing for a good amount of years now, a very good fighter. You know, all of a sudden he's doing things differently, and you know, that sometimes is a good thing, but I think if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know, you see what I'm saying? So I've noticed with Keith Thurman, and he's brought this up himself in the press conferences, that there's an extra focus being put on, you know, strength and conditioning. You know, he's actually went ahead and brought in an extra strength and conditioning coach. So he doesn't just have one strength and conditioning coach. He has two strength and conditioning coaches. And what this tells me about Keith Thurman is that he'll be looking to get a knockout against Manny Pacquiao. Now, I'll say it like this. You know, Keith may have the right intentions, but I think he might have the wrong approach with Manny Pacquiao. That's just my humble opinion. Because, you know, I'm going to give you guys my take on strength and conditioning in boxing. I think strength and conditioning, for the most part, is a load of crap, you know. It's very overrated, you know, and there's very few strength and conditioning coaches worth their weight in salt as coaches, you know. The best way to get in shape for boxing is boxing, okay? If you look at, like, take a guy like Roy Jones Jr., for example. Roy Jones Jr. was someone that wasn't really doing a whole lot of strength and conditioning. You know, he was a guy that hit the damn bag, and you saw what Roy Jones Jr. looked like. You saw his stamina. You saw how great of an athlete he was. So, you know, again, that's why you could look at a guy, some of these fat guys like Tony Bellew and Andy Ruiz Jr., who don't do this crazy strength and conditioning work, but they have great stamina, because the best way to get in shape for boxing is boxing. So I'm not really a fan of how he's approaching things with Pacquiao, because I feel like if this is the kind of fight where he goes past 7 rounds, he can get into real big trouble. But, you know, it's his career, it's his prerogative, so we'll see how it works out for him. It is worth noting that Keith Thurman hasn't scored a stoppage in his last 4 fights. You know, you'd have to go all the way back to his fight with Luis Collazo, where he scored a stoppage victory. And he didn't look good in that fight, to be honest with you. If we're honest with ourselves, he didn't look his best in that fight. Collazo landed a liver shot, had him on his bicycle, damn near got him out of there. So, you know, pretty much Keith Thurman's entire career at the elite level of boxing, I'm talking about his 2 fights, his Porter and his fight with Danny Garcia, his power has proven to be not what it was when he was fighting guys at the lower level. He's never stopped an elite level fighter. So conventional wisdom for this fight tells me that Keith Thurman is going to have to go the route of outboxing Manny Pacquiao, using his smarts, breaking his rhythm, using feints, and counterpunching to beat Manny Pacquiao. And it's very possible Keith is a smart enough fighter to do it. He's got to control the real estate. He's got to control the distance. He's got to make Manny reset, you know, touch him, kind of like Floyd did many times in the Pacquiao fight. You know, touch him, make him reset, spin off of him, check hook him, you know, and just keep him guessing the whole fight. That's what he's gonna have to do in this fight against Manny Pacquiao. One thing that is worth noting when it comes to Keith Thurman is that if you look at his, in my humble opinion, his two worst performances that we've seen, as far as where he didn't look good, where he didn't look his best, were against awkward southpaws. You know, first of all against Leonard Bundu, where he won the fight, but it wasn't a fight where he looked that good. And then the second fight, the second instance where he fought Collazo, and Collazo hit him with the lever shot and had him on his bicycle. Those guys are awkward southpaws, and now he's fighting a guy who is a fighter, an opponent in Manny Pacquiao, who is an awkward southpaw, but probably the greatest awkward southpaw that may have ever lived, and it is going to be interesting to see, you know, how Keith Thurman reacts to the left-handed Manny Pacquiao. I feel like if he can take the left-handed Manny Pacquiao, or at least have the composure to sit there in the pocket and deal with everything that left hand has to offer, you know, he has a good chance to win this fight. But the best route for Keith Thurman to win this fight for me is to use the range, establish the jab. I would say limit throwing your hooks, because Keith Thurman throws wide hooks, and the more hooks he throws, the more counter-punching opportunities with the straight left hand he will give Manny Pacquiao. So Keith Thurman's got all the tools. It's just a matter of, can he apply them correctly? I think he can, but my thing with him is, like, my biggest worry for Keith Thurman coming into this fight is, you know, strength and conditioning. You know, and is he getting too much of it? Is he going to try to sit down and punch too early? Will he gas himself out? Will he be reduced to that of a 3 to 4 round fighter? Because we've seen many fighters in boxing where when they lose a fight, or when they go into a big fight, they hire another strength and conditioning coach, or they double up on the strength and conditioning during their training camps, and they actually wind up having less stamina, because as you're doing strength and conditioning work, you're tightening, you're toning your muscles up more, you're getting you know, your muscles stronger, but your muscles are getting tighter, and when you throw punches, you will fatigue quicker. We've seen the same thing with Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua is probably the best example we can give of that. Anthony Joshua does gangs and loads and loads and loads of strength and conditioning work during his training camps, but as many of you can see, Anthony Joshua many times in his career has proven not to be a 12-round fighter. He's been reduced to that of a 4-round fighter, a 5-round fighter, a 6-round fighter, and he'd probably need to pull back on the strength and conditioning and do more of the boxing stuff. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, that's my biggest worry for Keith. But we'll see how it goes. I think I think what he will do in this fight, I think what he's gonna try to do is, early on, he will look to touch Manny Pacquiao. You know, you'll see him first 2 rounds, touch, move, touch, move. If the opportunity presented itself and many lunges in, you will look to see Keith land harp and shard counter punches. I think that overall is the ultimate goal for Keith Thurman, to land hard and sharp counter punches to really hurt Manny Pacquiao and get his respect early. And then once he does that, I feel like he'll try to cut the gap, close the distance, and then eventually sit down on his punches, walk Manny down, and get him out of there. We haven't really seen Keith Thurman do that against a awkward, athletic southpaw, because he didn't really do it against BOWE, and he did it against Collazo, but you know, it's gonna take that extra bit of quality to do it against Manny Pacquiao. I never really see him do it in emphatic fashion. I feel like if we've never seen him do it in emphatic fashion before against the lower level awkward southpaws, then what makes you think he's going to do it against a guy like Manny Pacquiao with his work rate, with his punching power, with the way his angles, you know, his lateral movement, you know. So, you know, I got probably one of the smartest fighters in boxing, Keith Thurman, but there's a lot of question marks there. So I think he's got the tools to do it. If he is going to win, I don't think it's going to be by knockout. It'll be by a close, like a split decision, majority decision, something like that. So yeah, that's basically, those are my thoughts on Keith Thurman coming into this fight.
In the home of the brave.
Smile, boss, smile. Boss, smile. Boss, picture na isa, smile lang. Ready, 1, 2. Smile, 1. That's awesome. That's awesome.
To the land of the free. In the home of the brave.
My thoughts on Manny Pacquiao coming into this fight, you know, he's at a very interesting place in his career. I mean, and he's at a place that no other fighter has been at in their own careers, you know, ever in the history of boxing. You know, he's not even a full-time boxer. The dude is literally a senator of a country, and a big one at that, in the Philippines. He's still a top 5 welterweight, no doubt about it. The question with Manny Pacquiao is not his skills, it's not anything, it's not his heart, it's not his dedication. It's really how much does he have left in the tank. And, you know, he fought a fighter in Adrian Broner that I feel like was made to order for him. It was an easy fight to pick. So now he's fighting a guy in Keith Thurman who's going to present some real stylistic challenges for him. And, you know, we'll see what he has to offer. But it's definitely his biggest fight of his career. It's the biggest fight of his career since he fought Floyd Mayweather. It's the first pay-per-view fight, I believe. Probably since the Floyd fight. Unless Bradley 3 was on pay-per-view. I'm not sure about that one. But it's the biggest fight he's had in his career since Floyd, for sure. And you know, you could argue this. You could argue because you look at if you look at some of the fighters Manny Pacquiao's lost to on his record, like he lost to Floyd Mayweather, who's an exceptional counterpuncher. He got knocked out by Marquez, who's a great counterpuncher. He lost to Eric Morales one time, who was a good all-around fighter, but a solid counterpuncher in his own right. So he's many times in his career struggled with counterpunchers, and you can make the argument that at welterweight, because as far as welterweight is concerned, aside from Keith Thurman, the two great welterweight counterpunchers, or really good welterweight counterpunchers he fought at welterweight during his welterweight run, Pacquiao, is Miguel Cotto and Floyd Mayweather. And I think, and you guys might think I'm crazy for this, but I think you could actually make the argument that Keith Thurman might be a better counterpuncher than Miguel Cotto, because of the fact that if you look at when Cotto fights, Cotto's always bouncing and wasting his energy and whatnot, you know. And so I feel like with Keith Thurman can counterpunch you whether he's moving on the move or whether he's stationary. As to with Cotto, I didn't really see that as much from him when he was fighting. So that's why I'd probably grade him a bit higher as a counterpuncher, but that's just my own personal opinion. The key for Manny Pacquiao in this fight is very, very simple with Keith Thurman. He has to get his respect early, and I think the way he does that in the first 2 to 3 rounds is to land that left hand. He has to find a way to land that left hand. Because if that left hand is as potent as I still think it is, because I still think that left hand gets a lot of fighters respect, and it, you know, it's backed bigger fighters up like Jeff Horn. You know, he had him out on his feet in the 9th round of that fight. You know, so I feel like if he does that against Keith in the first 2 or 3 rounds, it bodes well for him, because the more he's able to land the left hand, the more cautious Keith will be. It'll lower his punch output, and he'll be looking to land one big shot. And you know, Keith, I feel like, is going to be swinging very hard in this fight, because he's going to look to strengthen up and try to sit down on his shots and get Pacquiao out of there. So it's important to get his respect early. Very, very important to get his respect early. With that being said, and the more he's able to do that, the more I feel like he'll be able to cut the distance, close the gap, and the more he's able to do that, he'll go to the body. He'll target the liver of Keith Thurman, which everybody knows the body of Keith Thurman. You can hurt him and really do a number on him if you're able to land the right shots. And Pacquiao is crafty enough. He's smart enough, he's quick enough, and he's powerful enough to land those shots and do damage to Keith Thurman. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, he's got an advantage there as far as his not ring IQ, but being able to land that punch to the body. And then another advantage I feel like Manny has in this fight is his work rate, because what's funny with Manny is, like, even though he's the older fighter, I feel like in terms of stamina, he's still better than Keith Thurman. And not just Keith Thurman, he's probably better than a lot of welterweights out there in the stamina department. You know, because Manny Pacquiao, what's funny is if you look at, like, I looked at the numbers, and I looked at, you know, as far as CombiBox goes, and I don't put too much stock into CombiBox, but I looked at pretty much what each fighter, Thurman and Manny, are averaging as far as punches thrown for the last 3 fights. So if you look at Manny Pacquiao, right, his last 3 fights, he's boxed a total of 31 rounds. He's boxed a total of 31 rounds his last 3 fights. And in the Broner fight, he threw 568 punches. In the Matisse fight, in which he got a 7th round stoppage, he threw 344 punches, so he was on pace for that 500, 600 mark. And then in the Jeff Horn fight, he threw 573 punches over the course of 12 rounds. So he's been averaging, even if you factor in the Matisse fight where he stopped him in 7 rounds, he's averaging about 495 punches thrown per fight. But if you were to like adjust the Matisse fight for the 12 rounds, what he was averaging per round, he's averaging well over 550 punches a fight. You know, so his work rate is still very, very good, very, very good. And then if you look at Keith Thurman, right? If you look at his CombiBox punches thrown over the last 3 fights, Thurman's been averaging. He threw 899 punches against Josito Lopez. He threw 570 punches against Danny Garcia, and he threw 539 punches against Sean Porter. Now that comes out to a total of 629 punches a punch average through the course of 3 fights. So Keith Thurman's been averaging more punches thrown per his last 3 fights. But you gotta look at these things in its proper context, because his last fight against Josito Lopez was an absolute sea-level fighter who doesn't move his head, and for the most part in that fight didn't press the action and was content to stay on the outside and get lit up by Keith Thurman. So it was a perfect opponent for him, but so there's that. But when you look at the other two fights, Garcia and Porter, they're very similar in terms of punches thrown. He threw 539 against Porter, he threw 570 against Danny Garcia. And like, if we look at the Porter fight, he wasn't able to get off as much against Porter as he did against Garcia because Porter was in his chest and he was pressing the action. And with Danny Garcia, his punch output didn't rise to anywhere close to the level of the Josito Lopez fight because Danny was able to get his respect, and Keith knew he couldn't overcommit to a lot of shots, so he had to be smart. He had to use his bike. He had to get on his bike and kind of just pick his shots very wisely with Danny Garcia because he knew that Danny could really do a number on him. So what his punch is thrown in his last 3 fights tell me is that when a guy can get his respect and can cut the distance effectively, his punch output will lower. That's Keith Thurman. Okay, so I feel like Manny Pacquiao fits the bill. He can do both those things. He can definitely cut the distance on Keith Thurman because he's done it with many fighters, and he can definitely get his respect at left hand as he done it with plenty of fighters. He did it with Horn. He's done it with Bradley. He's done it with Matisse. Did it with Floyd even. Because Floyd wasn't overcommitting to a lot of shots, and Floyd had to sit there and do what he did from the outside. And let's have it right. Floyd didn't look great in that fight, and a lot of people thought that fight was very close. Some people had it a draw. Some people thought Manny won. Some people thought Floyd won. I thought it could have won either way. It wasn't a fight where Floyd looked good. Let's just put it like that. So Manny Pacquiao has the tools to make Keith Thurman lower his punch output. He has the tools to get his respect. He has the tools to cut the distance and close the gap. And it's going to be very interesting to see how he does against Keith Thurman, because I feel like both these guys, if we look at stylistically, both fighters coming into this fight, like Manny is the kind of fighter, if we just look at Manny and the kind of fighter he is, he's the kind of fighter that's given Keith his problems in the past. The crafty southpaw. And in the case of Manny Pacquiao, he's a crafty athletic southpaw with punching power. You see what I'm saying? So it's a whole different ballgame of Manny. And then as for Manny, the guy who is fighters who are full-fledged true welterweights with good counter-punching abilities have given Manny problems. Guys like Floyd, Floyd gave him some problems. Early in his career when he fought Marquez gave him problems plenty of times, and he was a great counter-puncher. So if you're a patient counter-puncher with good boxing IQ and you got decent footwork, you can give Manny Pacquiao problems. Floyd did that. Marquez did that. Morales did that. So, Thurman is also the kind of fighter that would give Manny Pacquiao problems, has given Manny Pacquiao problems in the past. So, that's just what I think for the Manny Pacquiao side of things. And, yeah, so should be a good fight. So, I've kind of given my thoughts on both sides of the spectrum, where I think Manny falls, where I think Keith Thurman falls in the equation of this fight, where they're at in their careers coming into this fight. I would say this, as far as my prediction goes, my prediction in this fight is that I have Manny Pacquiao via unanimous decision. I'm going to tell you why. Keith Thurman bringing in an extra strength and conditioning coach is very alarming to me because I feel like he's approaching this fight the wrong way. He's trying to, strengthen himself up a lot more because he wants to get the knockout. He wants to do this in spectacular fashion, and there's no problems with that. But the best way to do that and get ready for that is boxing. People have this misconception that more strength and conditioning means you're going to be better at boxing. Negative. To be in better shape for boxing, you need to box more. Okay, that's why. If you ever wanted to understand why guys like Tony Bellew and Andy Ruiz could easily fight for 12 rounds and have great stamina, it's because they don't do a whole lot of strength and conditioning. Okay, they focus primarily on the boxing side of things, technical boxing, tactical boxing, those sides of things. They're not worried about lifting weights and getting stronger. And a guy like Anthony Joshua, who doubles up on strength and conditioning, he struggles to make the 12 rounds sometimes because his muscles are too damn tight, So that's my problem for Keith Thurman. I feel like early on in the fight, he's going to try and land hard counter punches on Manny Pacquiao. And if he doesn't land them, I see Manny Pacquiao outworking Keith Thurman, cutting the distance on Keith Thurman, landing the left hand to get Keith Thurman's respect. I see Keith Thurman using lateral movement, not wanting to overcommit to punches and shots. And I don't think Manny Pacquiao is going to stop Keith Thurman because I don't feel like at this point in his career Manny Pacquiao has that extra bit of quality that it takes to stop a guy like Keith Thurman. But I think he's got enough punching power to gain his respect. I think he's got enough punching power to really just do a number on him and keep him at bay. And I just feel like the rounds are going to go by. Keith Thurman will look to land the hard counter punches. And when he realizes he can't do that, he will look to survive. He won't want to overcommit because I think Manny will have touched with the left hand too much. And, he will not want to overcommit to anything because he'll be afraid that Manny Pacquiao straight left hand. And the funny thing is, Keith Thurman said himself that Manny Pacquiao is the kind of fighter that is very basic. A lot of fighters say this because Ricky Hatton said the same thing before he fought Manny. He's he jab, left hand, slip under, jab, slip under, left hand. Pretty much it's a pretty simple thing with Manny Pacquiao. But Hatton said that, and you saw what happened to him. And the thing is, as Manny Pacquiao has matured and gotten older as a fighter, Manny Pacquiao has learned how to shoot that straight left hand to the body. We saw it many times in the Mayweather fight. We've seen it in a lot of his different fights where he's shooting the left hand to the body. And so I'm not gonna sit here and confuse him with Julio Cesar Chavez or Canelo Alvarez, but Manny Pacquiao is an underrated body puncher, and I see that being one of the differences in this fight. And I just got him winning a unanimous decision, proving himself at the age of 40 that he's still one of the top welterweights out there and defeating a young, prime, fantastic fighter in Keith Thurman. And I just felt like Manny Pacquiao is also going to be extra motivated for this fight because in the press conference, Keith Thurman pretty much spoke a lot about the Lord Jesus Christ, and you don't do that, Manny Pacquiao. You can't disrespect the Lord Jesus Christ, Manny Pacquiao. I mean, he said that to Manny. He said to Manny, I know you read the Bible a lot, so I'm going to crucify you like Jesus on the cross. He said that to Manny Pacquiao in the press conference, and everything I've heard from people who are close to Manny Pacquiao's team in the boxing world have told me that Manny Pacquiao has been training a lot harder for this fight than any of his last 4 or 5 fights, that he's very motivated, he's very up for this fight, and he wants to make Keith Thurman accountable for every word he said in the press conference. So I think Manny Pacquiao will turn back the clock for a little bit in this fight. You will see a great performance from him, and I got him out. I don't got him knocking out Keith Thurman, but I do got him outworking Keith Thurman, offsetting Keith Thurman, hurting Keith Thurman a couple times, stunning him a couple times, and ultimately outworking him to a unanimous decision and still proving that he is one of the best welterweights out there. But I understand, too, that Keith Thurman could catch him in one of them hard-ass counters and maybe get Manny out of there. So we'll see what happens. It's a great fight. Stylistically, these guys present a lot of challenges to each other, and I'm looking forward to a great night of boxing. So I've kind of laid out what I think about this fight, and I'd like to know what you guys think in the comments down below about Manny Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman. And yeah, so you can leave your comments down below. Take the time to subscribe. Like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Dang. So until next time, take care, guys.
Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT. We're at the Davy Powell, and you're watching True School Sports.